asked him to recall that he must not let any random ability deplete essentially anything from him, yet he didn't understand how he could use a powerful ability without consuming a lot of mana. To this the pen provided an answer: he should only use the necessary amount of mana to activate any ability. Realizing this, he finally understood how things worked. Now he could achieve what he had been aiming for. Looking a bit further ahead, he noticed the scene had shifted slightly. Meanwhile, we observe the frog chasing after the group, including the spoiled girl and the person with no power at the moment. The frog was about to do something. It suddenly stopped. This pause gave an advantage to the spoiled girl, who used her ability to control the person beside her as a shield. Our hero, having witnessed this entire scene, felt slightly irritated. Once again, he used a bit more mana than necessary. With this ability, he managed to wield his flame, a flame that was slightly superior. This flame needed to strike before the frog could attack the spoiled girl's group. At that moment, the group was about to be attacked. Our hero used the ability. Although it didn't land perfectly, he still managed to hit her with a blow. However, that superior flame completely engulfed the boss, scorching not just its body, but also its very soul. The group could not comprehend what was happening. What they were witnessing was the frog being incinerated by the dark flame. Now our hero could actually see the soul of this boss. However, using this ability rapidly depleted his mana. Unsure of what else to do, as his mana dwindled, he commanded the flame to burn a little longer. While it burned, he saw traces of the boss's soul linked to certain people who had tormented his life. Now our hero would no longer have trouble with them. With this new flame capable of burning even souls, he could use it to his advantage in many ways. However, as he continued to rely heavily on this immensely powerful ability, his mana was consumed at an alarming rate. Meanwhile, the boss was incinerated to the point of no return. At that moment, the pen begged him to stop using this ability. When he finally snapped back to reality, he noticed his arm was nearly consumed by the flame. Now he questioned what was happening. The pen had warned him not to use such magical power. The girl beside him was also left wondering what was truly going on. He asked her not to touch him. But what surprised her the most was that he managed to strike an opponent at a distance without even seeing or being near the enemy. This was an ability that could burn everything in its path. At that moment, he wondered why he hadn't been able to use this ability before. With it, he could have potentially defeated anyone. However, now that he had used it, he understood the downside of such power. This ability could consume him entirely, and if he didn't stop using it, it might burn him to ashes. He then commanded the flame to vanish. After it disappeared, the girl beside him attempted to use her healing ability to restore him, yet, as he healed the protagonist, she noticed she couldn't fully restore him. They decided to ignore this for now, as the system announced that the frog knight had been defeated. Because of this victory, he received some loot, a sword, a weapon, and the completion of a hidden quest that was basically taking down a certain prince who was conspiring against the princess, ended up being completed at this moment. So everything about him there kind of returned to the normal state, and now he managed to fully recover from the damage that had been caused to him. At this moment, he ends up being somewhat surprised by this. It seems strange. Meanwhile, the pen already finds our hero strange. However, he realized that before, our hero was just an ordinary person or a common idiot who viewed more the uncommon people, but over time he discovered that there is something dark inside him, though the pen would forget this. But out of nowhere we observe from another place that rich girl, who suddenly starts screaming loudly while her eyes begin to bleed. As she falls to the ground, she says, "I screamed for someone," and asked if there was anyone there who could help her, while the girl next to her simply ignores and runs in another direction. So they kind of managed to survive this wave of the frog boss. And now, having survived, he ended up receiving some rewards from the system. He feels happy about this, and now he picked up the achievement he had there in the system, but the moment he picks it up another system screen appears saying that a serious bug was showing up in this world again. The frog princess was angry about the death of that frog knight. Everyone gets scared because out of nowhere, everything around begins to shake. The girl who until now was rich suddenly went blind and wonders what was happening. Meanwhile, inside the castle, something began to rush out at high speed. That fraud then heads toward our hero's group, but unlike the other one, which was a level 9 frog, this one is different. This was the level 13 frog boss. While the new extremely powerful boss appeared, we then go back a little outside the portal. Someone was looking at the watch wondering why the association hadn't sent any hunters here yet to help him enter the portal, but as he complained about life, someone then decided to show up. He feels happy about their appearance. He then asks for their favor inside the portal. The boss attacks the group. He tried to catch the group. Meanwhile, the girl, who was there by his side, asks him to hold on a little longer, but the pan doesn't ask for him to get up and leave from there, but looking at his arms, he sees that he can't do anything anymore. Having used more mono, he can no longer do anything now against this boss without leaving. He then sees something out of nowhere deciding to appear in the sky. This thing then cracks the portal, and suddenly looking up he only sees a beam of light that crosses and lands right beside him. The one who landed beside him was that hunter from before. For at this moment the frog queen was about to attack our hero's group, but with just one punch he pushes this frog far away from the boss. This hunter then asks if by any chance she was the daughter of an important person. Without a response, he then turned to the group and wonders if she was really the daughter of that important a person. For this she says she wasn't. Then she says that the rich girl from before had escaped and fled to a safer place. Until then the girl in the background appeared, but as soon as she appeared we then observed the hunter pointing in her direction and wondering if she was the daughter of that guy, but she wasn't either. However, she claims that the daughter of that guy was there in the background, a little injured. However, before saving someone they kind of put an idea into the hunter's head that he should clean the dungeon first, but he leaves that for later as he has priorities. After heading in another direction, the frog queen gets angry again. She starts to attack the group that was down there below, and of course not to be caught they run. Meanwhile we observe the hunter who jumped right in the direction and in front of that rich girl. At this moment we observe that this girl, for being a bit arrogant, got a little hurt. The reason was because he was too slow. He, for having received this scolding, ends up not liking it much, but now he goes back to the group from before, and so he lands in front of the group of our hero. However, after landing a bit in front, he sees that the frog was there in the way, so with a kick he pushes it back. Meanwhile we observe there that this guy or realize they were too weak, but still wonders how they managed to survive up to this point. But now he needed to deal with this ugly thing. He realized that this ugly thing was a bug, so being a bug and have a low level he could handle it as quickly as possible. Moreover, he had managed to survive several dangerous adventures, so this boss was not a concern. But at this moment he advances. He also encountered the boss advancing towards this hunter, but the hunter ended up making a much faster move, and with just one move we observed that this hunter in a single strike ended up splitting the frog in half. And with this he ended up receiving the system's reward for having managed to defeat this boss. Well, not so much, because it was a bug. There were basically two bosses to be defeated. However, he turns towards our hero and asks where the other boss is. Well, the answer was clear already. Dan, in this curiosity, here you're being surprised by our hero. Our little story soon continues with that extremely powerful hunter crushing that frog queen. After that, the system screen appears saying that the frog princess was in kite. Now they could be passing through the portal, but that was a bug. Then the other below turns toward our hero and sees that it was he who corrected the previous bug. Now looking a little closer, he realizes he was a level 5 newcomer. Being a level 5 newcomer, he could easily maybe get through this. Also looking a little more closely at his occupation, it allowed him to defeat this boss extremely easily. since he easily managed to defeat that frog princess who was at a much higher level than that frog knight Lon, having a huge level advantage. He wonders what his strength level would be to find out. He'll use the Yan and Yan Eye to try to see his level, but at this moment he is interrupted by asking himself what his the patient level is. That's because he ended up sort of using one of his abilities to see our hero's level, but for some reason, he can't see it. Chang here was basically a level 5 guy. The number of conquered dungeons was just 3, but the occupation, which was what he sought most, showed as unknown. This leaves everyone confused. So far she asks herself what kind of occupation he had, as it was a doubt she had there just a moment ago. Now, our protagonist might not answer that question here, and now at this moment he ends up thinking that he can't do it. He'll have to solve a puzzle to fool these people here. That's because even the pen said that if he says anything about his system, it's very likely that both the pan and Shen will die here in this moment. At this point he even asked the pan to help him come up with a good excuse. The pan only asks him to run, though as looking ahead he sees the portal. Now it's just a matter of taking that portal and moving forward. At this moment some people only ask him to leave that portal quickly, as they didn't want to stay here any longer. Even the pen shared the same thought as those people as he thought about leaving. We observed that Hunter asking him to wait a minute. Well, he didn't know what this guy wanted, but maybe he even thinks he's going to share the money, some resources with them. Meanwhile she kind of turns toward the portal and sees PR. She still hasn't asked his name, but once they leave she'll probably ask. Meanwhile our hero looks at a system screen at the same time as that Hunter. While moving in the direction of that Hunter we see him looking to the side, where he finds several resources that they could share among themselves. But even so, some of his companions unfortunately died while trying to search for resources like these. The objective of one hunter in this world is only to enter dungeons and risk their lives to earn money. Even more so, he ends up saying here that in dungeons it's basically impossible for ordinary people to protect themselves, but with their help, possibly in the future, he will be able to become a much stronger person. Like quickly, he could reach level 10 easily. He could level up to level 20, or even more than that. Now Chang tries to understand what he was trying to say. The pen only tries to say that level 10 might be the maximum level, but the dungeons aren't classified according to a B, C, D, and E. They represent the portal levels, like level 1 to level 20. To differentiate this, they end up placing portals from level 1 to level 5, and they call this rank E. There's also rank D, which is from 5 to 9. The same applies to A and B except for C, because C now is level 10. When the adventurer reaches level 10, they can basically enter a rank C portal. But even so, the person who ended up entering the ranks C portal ends up encountering some bugs frequently, but upon reaching level 11, you can basically change jobs. This is a unique opportunity for those people who awakened a power they didn't like. What he says is basically correct. He needed to become an adventurer on his own, since with this trophy he would manage to become much stronger. At this moment he approaches our hero and says he had another mission to accomplish in this place. However, the pen feels he has smelled this scent somewhere before. It smelled like death, but its future was bright. Too bad misfortune would have to occur here. He grabs its head and with a tight squeeze destroys it, throwing our hero into another world. For him it was a huge shame, since he himself had survived that whole accident and several previous accidents. And even though some disasters happen, unfortunately, some people like our hero have these misfortunes in life. Well, let's say that everything that happens to him seems to go wrong. While all that was happening inside the portal, we observed from the outside that people are happy to see that some important individuals finally exit the portal. Meanwhile, we observe that rich woman who ended up receiving some first-class treatment for while others are happy about her return. She stays by the portal, looking inside waiting for our hero to still be alive. Meanwhile, we observe a little more outside near a hospital. The person inside the car receives a report that some people are hunters who were completely wiped out inside. However, on certain days association inspectors will arrive in this city looking for some important things, but he doesn't care as in Rise, and he basically have the same interests. Since as long as that boy is dead he will be able to complete all his plans, and that boys, no matter the situation, is not allowed to live. We return them to inside the portal, where we find the previous situation is Stub ends up falling to the side, while the hunter just stares in his direction. At this moment, we observe the pen looking in another direction, and in that direction, there is a system screen. At this moment, an extra mission appears. The mission is as follows: the player died, and now he must face failure. Well, now that he died, some people from the underworld realize he has gone, but they needed to keep him alive, otherwise, as well, right with him dead, they won't be able to complete their plans. One of the guys who wore glasses and was unknown said he would move just one finger to help. Meanwhile, the others wonder what they'll be doing. Some say they can't do anything, since they are unsuitable for this situation. Others say they could try to do something, since he was basically a perfect host. However, there was one there who was really eager to do something like taking a stroll in the human world. So it is done. He asks to be allowed, and being granted permission, we return to the real world, where a slightly bluish flame appears in our hero's hand. Well, for him it was actually normal. For him it already felt like he was controlling it, our hero's own body. Well, since his head was no longer there, but at some point it leaves our hero, which gives a gigantic scare to this hunter. Now that he stood up, he can't believe it, he's still alive. But now what could he be doing at this moment? Our hero stands up. While his head was on fire, he was just performing the whole act, because then he uses a slightly stronger fire that goes in the direction of the hunter. At this moment, a strong pressure comes over him. If he didn't have all the power he has, he wouldn't withstand this pressure and would have died here, but still he wonders what kind of profession this is. This is a crazy profession. It's also a new profession. He can't believe that a level 5 guy had such strong power, such a heavy pressure, like this at the moment. Then the one controlling our Chang asks the pan to search for our hero's hand, and even more, so he could be controlling this boy's body for a few minutes, as the system would be interfering in the story and so sending him to that dimension. Thus the pan runs towards our hero's head. Meanwhile, he ends up sort of using a little more power. With this power, he manages to reconstruct their head of our protagonist. At this moment, he used a bit of his vitality, which would give our Chang an enormous chance. So at this moment, after reconstructing his head, we move forward a little to the dimension where the pen finds the head and the body of our hero. Now lying here, he sees that maybe he no longer has don't know the strength to live, but he still needed a greater motivation, because every time he wanted to survive he managed to. Now he could not give up, because in all the last times he risked everything he always succeeded. Although now he has become strong, he sees that even so this boy in the end only acts like a coward, and towers like these are not basically places where boys like our hero can be. And for that he needed to give our hero that extra strength. Then, after he survived, he was saddened by the death of his old friends, but then he keeps wondering why he gets so angry when someone attacks his new friends. Before he managed to see a small hatred that our hero had, but it disappeared. Now he wonders who this boy was. Now the pen should be ignoring this, since there isn't much time to waste on useless things. At this moment it activates the scrolls that were there in our hero's eye, as which is what activates it. Some words enter the body of our protagonist, and at the moment he begins to say some things that make no sense at all. But now that Chan has woken up, he wonders what happened. The last time he could only see well the shadow of a guy approaching. Now that he's fully awake, he understands what really happened. Well, this was not the shadow of just any guy, but of that hunter who only lived inside this dungeon, not to save them, but with the sole purpose of sending our protagonist away, but still the pan wonders how he is so sure about this. He only says he had a small memory, and saw everything that happened at this moment. He is filled with anger at this point. Even the pen understands that that guy was indeed back in our hero, but suddenly he changes the subject. He no longer cares about it, since he understands that in this world the incredible people are mostly those looking for our protagonist, not to make friends with him, but to kill the guy. Now that he understands that there's a level 17 guy out there looking for our protagonist, he only understands that he needed to evolve a bit more, but he also knows that that guy was scapegoat. So right, if he survives that again, he will have to be leveling up, and will have to be reaching level 10. Since by reaching level 10 you can pass through a portal anytime, and as you wish. However, people who commit crimes inside the dungeon basically have people behind them investing heavily in this guy, but when their crimes are exposed to the whole world, the adventurer's career goes downhill. But this also determines and proves that this person is extremely powerful, even more so. Right at this moment he wonders why there are still so many people after him. Create and doesn't know, but still he wants to know if he can return to his body. Thus Side as says that for him to get out of here he needs to use his head, since the last time he was sent to this dimension they managed to get out simply, but now that has changed, and even more so. However, right, the system appeared and said that the player died, but still the player is angry. However, at this moment current us as he didn't need to worry so much. It's because in his body there was someone helping him to outsmart the system at B, so he could return to his original body. And again, Hasab approaches our hero. By luck he needed to complete a certain test in a few minutes. If he didn't complete it, it would be game over. However, in this dimension, the pen tells us here that he can live as long as he wants. As time here passes extremely slowly, still the pen says they didn't have much time before. Well, the pen just ignores our protagonist, and still it ended up saying earlier that he has a mission, and also the following: if he manages to leave this world where they are and return to the real world, he will die again and will be that failure who gets up, gets beaten, and just suffers at the hands of anyone he encounters on faith. And for this test is being put into practice. Thus various things appear in front of our hero. Greatest says that if he completes this test he will have enough power to defeat any player, monster, or anything else. Since in front of Chang there were various cards, these cards could be movement, combat, experience, or bodily skills. In this place he had everything to learn the best of the best, but now looking at these tasks he sees it was a lot, but the pen he says it wasn't. When the right moment comes he will find a perfect way to escape this dimension, and also following this he will be presented with a trainer, a perfect trainer for him. He wonders who the train, or was at first even mocks, saying that maybe it was some ghost from the underworld, but at that moment something appears making our hero look fixedly and slowly in that direction. Chains then appear beside him. There was a gigantic gate. This gate for a moment almost hit our protagonist, but due to his agility he managed to dodge. Dodging, he now looks at it and is startled by the size of this game. At the moment only one thing crosses his mind: what was that? But from that gate a hand sort of comes out. Now that he looked at this hand he ends up remembering that they were an old acquaintance, since as soon as he talks about this we then observe a person with white hair behind them. A little further back we observe another with purple hair. At this moment it's us introducing this trainer to our shank. This trainer was the black and white one who back at the beginning had given that little hand. Right, well, he had died while he couldn't do. Thanks for watching PT4 Dominator Underworld. Bye bye.